everyone! Welcome to my channel. I'm Katrina and I'm an amateur home baker that loves to bake. I'll be baking my way through other people's recipes to document my journey and improve my baking skills. So sit back and enjoy the ride. For this series, I'll be baking my way through Claire Saffis' book, Dessert Person. She's an amazing baker that I started watching on YouTube over the pandemic, and I can't wait to try her recipes. Today, I'll be starting with the first recipe, spiced honey and rye cake. This recipe is on page 37 of her book. It's an all-season recipe, and the difficulty is rated as very easy. It should take around an hour and 25 minutes. Let's get started. To start, place a rack in the center of the oven and make sure it's empty. We used to keep our pans in the ovens, and I once melted the handle because I forgot to empty it out. So always check. Then preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You will need a 4.5 by 8.5 inch loaf pan. Coat it with some neutral oil. I used vegetable oil here. Then cut a piece of parchment paper. You'll want to cut it a little shorter than the long sides. You can see here mine is a little too long, so it wrinkles at the bottom, but that's okay. Make sure to leave a little bit of overhang on both long sides. I love that Claire lists out her ingredients in multiple measurements. She has it in cups, but also in ounces and grams. In my experience, you get the best and most accurate results when you weigh everything with a scale. I'm using an Ozeri scale that I got off of Amazon to weigh everything. For dry ingredients, you will need 173 grams of all-purpose flour, 33 grams of rye flour, 6 grams of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of Diamond Crystal kosher salt. I'm actually using David's kosher salt because that's what I had in my kitchen. 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Claire recommends fresh grated, but I could only find ground at my grocery store. And an 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves. All the spices. Grab a whisk and mix all your dry ingredients together. Then set the bowl aside. In a separate bowl, collect your wet ingredients. You will need 2 large eggs at room temperature. I've seen this requirement in several recipes now, so I always check to see what temperature the eggs should be at and take them out before measuring out the rest of my ingredients. Whisk your eggs to break up the yolks and whites. If you're lazy like me, you can use a hand mixer. "50 grams of sugar. I'm using Monkfruit sugar here because that's what I had in my pantry. I like it because it reduces calories and it doesn't affect blood sugar, but I just looked it up and found out it's 150 to 200 times sweeter than sugar, so you shouldn't use it as a 1-to-1 replacement. Oops. I'll remember that for next time. 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. I zested 1 lemon and that was enough. 170 grams of honey, plus more for drizzling on top later. At this point, whisk again until the mixture is smooth and thick. The book says for around 30 seconds. "113 grams of neutral oil. I'm using vegetable oil here. You'll want to add the oil slowly and whisk while you're adding it to incorporate it. And lastly, 100 grams of unsweetened applesauce. The book says you can also use pear sauce, but applesauce is easier to find. Then whisk in the applesauce, and that's it for the wet ingredients. In the bowl with dry ingredients, make a well in the center of the mixture with your hands. Then pour in your wet mixture and whisk until you have a homogeneous batter. Grab your prepared loaf pan and pour in the batter. Then bake it for around 50 to 60 minutes until a toothpick comes out clean. I baked for 55 minutes because I didn't want it to be too dry. After you pull it out of the oven, let it rest in the pan for around 20 minutes. Using an offset spatula, cut along the sides of the loaf and then lift it out with the parchment paper. Place it onto a wire rack to finish cooling. And it's time to test. Cut yourself a few slices and grab a plate. Drizzle with some more honey before taking a bite. You can really taste all the spices. I was expecting it to be overly sweet since I used Monkfruit sugar, but it turned out okay. My boyfriend and I tried it plain, with butter, and with honey. Claire really knows her flavor combinations because it tasted best with honey. I recommend eating it for dessert or with some black coffee for breakfast in the morning. Bon appetit! Mission accomplished! I agree with Claire's difficulty rating. That recipe wasn't too hard to follow. It's relatively quick to make, and you can find the ingredients any time of year. Once again, that was the spiced honey and rye cake from Claire's book, Dessert Person. I'll include a link for the book in the description below. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next time with another recipe from Dessert Person.